And welcome to Hannity. Sore loser. Hillary Clinton joins the recount effort to undermine the election. A revolt is brewing over Mitt Romney potentially being Secretary of State. And I hope President-elect Trump follows through on his promise to investigate Hillary Clinton. Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, will be here with reaction. But first, tonight's opening monologue. Now, over the weekend, Hillary Clinton's campaign said it is supporting recount efforts that are led by Green Party candidate Jill Stein. This is happening in states like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Now, this is insanity. It's all about trying to undermine a Democratic election and, of course, Donald Trump's decisive victory. Now, the idea for challenging election results appears to come from a conspiracy theory that the alt-radical left is now pushing. They're claiming that voting machines in those states were hacked, and maybe by the Russians. Now, of course, they have no actual proof of voter fraud or any wrongdoing, and both the White House and the Wisconsin Elections Commission have both said zero evidence whatsoever that that did happen. And it wasn't that long ago that Hillary Clinton, remember, she was slamming Donald Trump for saying at the third debate that he would wait until after the election actually happened before accepting the results. Remember how angry she was? Watch this.
That is not the way our democracy works. We've been around for 240 years. We've had free and fair elections. We've accepted the outcomes when we may not have liked them. And that is what must be expected of anyone standing on a debate stage during a general election. And then he's gone out and talked about rigged elections, and he's tried to rile up all of his supporters and his rallies, and it's really painful to see this.
But in that last debate, he said something truly horrifying, and that was that he wouldn't say he would accept the results of the election. This is his final target, our democracy itself.
There's also the fact that during her concession speech, Hillary Clinton said that the country should accept the results and support President-elect Trump. Let's take a look.
We must accept this result and then look to the future. Donald Trump is going to be our president. We owe him an open mind and the chance to lead. Our constitutional democracy enshrines the peaceful transfer of power. And we don't just respect that, we cherish it.
Now, the double standard from Hillary Clinton and the alt-radical left in the media is very appalling. So why isn't the mainstream media condemning Hillary for doing this? Now, what happened to the peaceful transition of power and supporting the incoming administration? Now, these principles of American democracy apparently no longer apply to the alt-radical left because, well, their candidate lost. And are we really supposed to believe that Jill Stein is not getting anything out of this? Interesting question. Now to another story tonight that is making waves. According to reports, President-elect Donald Trump is considering picking Mitt Romney to be Secretary of State. Now, they are set to meet once again tomorrow, but the idea of choosing Romney to serve in the administration is causing major controversy inside the Trump transition team. Now, Romney may be playing nice now, but he viciously, you remember this, attacked Donald Trump during the election. Take a look.
If Donald Trump's plans were ever implemented, the country would sink into prolonged recession. Now, Donald Trump tells us that he is very, very smart. I'm afraid that when it comes to foreign policy, he is very, very not smart. Here's what I know. Donald Trump is a phony, a fraud. His promises are as worthless as a degree from Trump University. He's playing the members of the American public for suckers. He gets a free ride to the White House, and all we get is a lousy hat. I just can't sit by. What am I going to do when my grandkids say, what did you do to stop Donald Trump? And I say, well, I didn't do anything. I'm not going to be there. I certainly would not endorse him for president. Well, I wouldn't vote for Donald Trump, and I wouldn't vote for Hillary Clinton. I intend to vote for our nominee. I expect that nominee to be a real conservative, a real Republican.
Beyond vicious. And those are just a few of the attacks from Romney. Now, according to the Washington Post, back in May, Romney was part of a group of never-Trumpers that tried to recruit a conservative third-party candidate to try and stop Trump from winning the White House. This was all part of the reason why top Trump allies are now speaking out against Romney. For example, Kellyanne Conway is the latest to sound this alarm. Take a look.
He went so far out of his way to hurt Donald Trump. There was the Never Trump movement, and then there was Mitt Romney. He gave speeches against Donald Trump. He attacked his character. I'm just saying that we don't even know if Mitt Romney voted for Donald Trump. The backlash from the grassroots, I'm hearing from people who say, hey, my parents died penniless, but I gave $216 to Donald Trump's campaign, and I would feel betrayed. You have people saying, I thought we got rid of this type.
Now, it is worth remembering that Trump's core supporters, they stood strong every single day against Romney and the, quote, Never Trumpers. Now, to them, Romney, he represents the establishment, everything they hate and voted against this year. Also, if I had to guess, I don't think Romney pulled the lever for Trump on Election Day. And while I understand the whole team of rivals concept very well, Lincoln didn't have to worry about his opponent's remarks being played all over cable news 24/7 and on social media. Now, the final point that we want to stress tonight is the Hillary Clinton criminal investigation. Now, Mr. Trump promised to investigate her and her use of a private email server and the Clinton Foundation. But the president-elect recently told the New York Times, quote, I want to move forward, I don't want to move back, and I don't want to hurt the Clintons, I really don't. She went through a lot, suffered greatly in many different ways, and I'm not looking to hurt them at all. This isn't about hurting a former presidential political opponent. It's about whether or not America will have equal justice under the law, not a system that's two-tiered, where the elite, the powerful, are treated differently than all the rest of us. And you may remember, this is what President-elect Trump promised.
Hillary Clinton is the most corrupt person ever to seek the office of the presidency of the United States. She should be locked up. She should. And if I win, I am going to ask my Attorney General to appoint a special prosecutor to look into her crimes, because what she did is a disgrace to the United States of America. When we win on November 8th, we are going to Washington, D.C., and we are going to drain the swamp.
Drain the swamp, lock her up. Now, there's no doubt he's going to have his hands full cleaning up the mess that's left behind by President Obama. Donald Trump does need to focus on plenty of other issues, like creating those jobs that Americans need. But that doesn't mean that he can't tell the FBI and Department of Justice to pursue the law. What justice under the law? That means the Clinton email scandal and the foundation scandals. We know that Obama's Department of Justice was protecting Hillary Clinton during the election, and that the FBI is actively investigating the Clinton Foundation. So why not see where the facts lead without any outside interference? Anyway, that's our opening monologue tonight. Joining us now with reaction, the author of the New York Times best-selling book, Treason, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, Newt Gingrich. Mr. Speaker, good to see you. First, about the recount. Do you really believe Jill Stein, with less than 1%, is doing this all on her own? Because it's kind of conspiracy week. Hillary's thinking that the Russians hacked into Wisconsin's voting machines. So can we say that I think that Hillary probably is prompting, or her people are prompting, Jill Stein? That seem plausible?
Look, well, first of all, you covered an amazing amount of ground in that opening report. I want to commend you. And you used video beautifully to get people to understand you're simply giving them what actually happened, not your opinion, but they get to see for themselves. I thought it was brilliantly done. I think the recount mania is one more example of the collapse of the Democratic Party as a realistic institution. Next, we're going to be told that not only were the Russians engaged, but that there were Martians who were secretly voting in a variety of hamlets, and they were all right-wing Martians.
Yeah.
And that, therefore, you know, we have to have a whole new election.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. What you're watching is and you're seeing this also with Keith Ellison running for Democratic National Committee chairman. I mean, you're seeing the sort of nutty wing of the Democratic Party begin to take over. And what Hillary said on election night was the right thing to say. I mean, if there was a realistic chance that they could turn 3 states and therefore turn the election, you could say, all right, I get it. There's not. I mean, nobody believes they're going to turn Pennsylvania, period. If you don't turn Pennsylvania, nothing matters. they're probably impossible to turn Wisconsin. It's too big a vote. It's too honest a state. Even the White House has conceded. The Russians weren't there. The Martians weren't there. I mean, none of these explanations work. And then you've got Michigan. The odds against them turning all three of those states, which is what they'd have to do, are probably 1 trillion to 1. So you begin to get into the nuttiness phase.
Well, we're leaving the phase of coloring books.
A large enough number that it's irrational.
We're leaving the phase. Look, it's been a shock phase. Play-Doh, coloring books, aromatherapy, pet therapy, hot cocoa served to poor little students by their professors. So I guess the next stage is going to be the radical left stage, which is their anger. And so don't they really, there's a motive here to delegitimize Donald Trump. There's a play here. Don't you think it's that?
But yeah, of course. But the problem they've got is they're doing it so badly, they're going to delegitimize themselves. They're going to end up looking silly. I mean, you know, and I think we should just say, you know, all of the nutcakes who want to gather and be part of the Democratic Party should feel very free to do so. Just don't ask the rest of us to take you seriously. But it's perfect if it's therapy for you to get together and whine and whimper and chant anti-Trump, anti-Trump. Fine, America's a free country. You're allowed to be weird.
You are. It's free will. Absolutely. All right, let me move on. This has become a huge issue. I find myself agreeing with you, Mike Huckabee, Kellyanne, and others that I've talked to. And I was out and about over the weekend. I was off rarely for 5 straight days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I talked to a lot of people. And people are just shocked at the idea about 2 things, that Donald Trump made comments that he doesn't want to go after Hillary necessarily, and 2, that he might pick Mitt Romney to be his Secretary of State. I just played the comments of Mitt Romney. I want to get your take on why you think it would be a bad idea.
Well, let me just say, I think that if the president-elect really for some reason wants Romney, he simply needs to understand in advance that there is an enormous base that wanted to drain the swamp, and they see Romney as the swamp. They will not understand. I mean, he either has to decide he's willing to accept a very large part of his base being totally upset and feeling betrayed and alienated, or he's got to figure out a pretty good explanation. I can't quite imagine the introductory speech where President-elect Trump explains why Mitt Romney makes any sense as Secretary of State. So I think it's an interesting situation. I don't know why he's letting it drag out the way it is. I gather they're going to meet again tomorrow. And it is his prerogative as the president-elect to pick who he wants. But he should understand that folks who are speaking out, whether that's Mike Huckabee or you or Kellyanne Conway or me, we're really speaking out on behalf of an amazing number of people who come up to us and tell us that they, or who email us and just say they cannot understand. And I think it would be a huge mistake to betray that base on behalf of somebody who, this is not like team of rivals. There was nobody in Lincoln's cabinet who was a bitter, unending opponent all the way through the general election. No one.
Right.
So this is a totally phony comparison.
I think the things that he said,
that it will be a significant mistake.
He supported Rubio in Florida, Kasich in Ohio, Admiral Mullins in Utah, said he was a racist, misogynist, fraud, huckster, liar, everything horrible you can say. Look, and I say this as somebody who thinks that in 2012, if Romney won, he would have been a much better president, obviously, than Obama. I believed he would have been. This doesn't work on any level. I just don't see it. And I think he's setting himself up for trouble down the road. But as you said, I guess it's going to be his decision. But I would, not that anyone ever listens to me, Mr. Speaker, but I would strongly urge no on that. And there's other qualified people. General Petraeus was there today. I happen to be a big supporter of Rudy for that position. But, you know, they haven't decided, and we'll see which way it goes.
Look, well, let me just join you in that for a second. Rudy Giuliani is the most effective turnaround artist to be a mayor in the United States in my lifetime. He is a straight shooter. He actually has had business dealings in 80 different countries. He understands the world. And anybody who's watched him knows you wouldn't get anybody tougher, both in reforming the State Department and in speaking to the world on behalf of America. And I really do hope that they decide in the end that Rudy is the right guy to be Secretary of State, I think he would do a terrific job.
All right, we're going to take a break. More with Newt Gingrich right after this. And also coming up earlier today, as I just mentioned, General David Petraeus, he met with President-elect Trump right in New York City. Petraeus is reportedly being considered himself as Secretary of State, and also later tonight.
I think that moment when he said what he said about accepting the results of the election exposed himself as a coward.
The alt-radical left mainstream media hypocrisy is exposed. Remember when they were all freaking out over Donald Trump's comments about accepting election results? We'll check in with Monica Crowley, Anthony Scaramucci, and much more. Also, an 18-year-old Somali refugee accused of carrying out a violent attack at Ohio State University, and Tim Tebow tonight on Hannity.
The meeting went very well. Was with him for about an hour. He basically walked us around the world, showed a great grasp of a variety of the challenges that are out there and some of the opportunities as well. So, very good conversation, and we'll see where it goes from here.
General David Petraeus, earlier today, after he met with President-elect Donald Trump in New York City, he is rumored to be in the running for Secretary of State. We continue with former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. He has a lot of people to choose from. Again, Rudy, I think, has got to be there. Certainly General Petraeus. It's an interesting example. He paid a price for a very tiny, insignificant, especially compared to Hillary, issue involving private information, confidential information. This raises the question.
David Petraeus.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, David Petraeus is a remarkable leader, has had enormous experience, and brings a lot to it. But let me also mention, if you want to look beyond Rudy, and I don't particularly, but Ambassador Bolton would do a stunningly good job. He understands the State Department. He knows how it needs to be fixed. He has the toughness to fix it. And I think you could find 10 or 15 or 20 people who could do the job, any one of whom would be dramatically better than Mitt Romney.
Yeah, well, I tend to agree. But what about the issue of Hillary Clinton? I would say to Donald Trump, if anyone would listen to me, I would say, Mr. Trump, it's not your decision. You can say that you wish the Clintons the best, but the rule of law, doesn't it have to be followed? Wouldn't it be the decision of the new Attorney General and the Justice Department whether or not laws were broken, and we can't have a two-tier justice system? We have to have equal justice under the law?
Sure. Look, I think the best road forward, because you do have always some inherent sense that there might be somehow inappropriate political motivations. The best road forward would be for the new Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, when he's approved, to appoint a genuinely independent person, probably a former federal judge, somebody that is widely regarded as above political partisanship, and have that person coordinate what is both an FBI and an Internal Revenue Service investigation of the Clinton Foundation and of the email scandals. But I think it would be wrong for the president to directly intervene in the justice system, either to help somebody or to hurt somebody. America has to be about the rule of law, not the rule of politicians. And so I would hope that it's fine for President-elect Trump to say he personally has no ill will, but it would not be fine for him to say, therefore, he is personally going to exonerate the Clintons and all of their staff and all the other people that were involved. I don't think he has that kind of power, nor in a healthy, free society should he.
And in fairness, even if you wanted to say move on, well, Barack Obama would have the opportunity, just like Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon for crimes committed and that may have been committed. I mean, the power of the pardon is absolute. So President Obama has the opportunity, if he wants to give a pardon to the Clintons, he could do that, right?
He could, although he'd have to also include a bunch of other people. Because remember, there are other folks who are at risk in this thing, not, Huma Abedin, for example, or Cheryl Mills. There are a number of people at risk. But the Founding Fathers deliberately gave the president an extraordinary ability to pardon people. And they thought it was a very important tool in a healthy society, precisely because they didn't want to see people politically persecuted for some reason. So if President Obama wanted to do that, that would be his power, his right to do it. Whether or not the Clintons would in fact accept that kind of grant, because it also would have to include former President Bill Clinton, which does carry with it, in a sense, some kind of symbol of guilt. I think that's something they and their lawyers would have to work through. But certainly President Obama could do that. That would be totally legitimate. For that matter, President Trump, once he is sworn in, could do the same thing. The question is that really good for America? Do we want America to see that if you're powerful enough and you have good enough connections, that you're above the law? I think that's the grave danger of the Obama Justice Department. And I would hate to see it. I'd hate to see it carried forward to the Trump administration.
I have 30 seconds left. You met with Donald Trump in New York last week, and you want a position to help outside of the administration. Did you talk specifically about that, and can you tell us anything about it? Was it offered to you?
Well, look, all I can say is that Clifton and I had a great conversation. He, I think, is really on top of his game. He is really leaning forward. He understands how big the job is. And we talked about strategic planning and the need to have somebody who could look at the entire system, not just the presidency or not just one department. And I think he's comfortable with that. And he indicated that he would be very supportive of my doing that.
All right, Mr. Speaker, good to see you. Thanks for being with us. And up next tonight, right here on Hannity.
I think that moment when he said what he said about accepting the results of the election exposed himself as a coward.
All right, remember when the alt-left mainstream media, they were losing their minds during the campaign because Trump wouldn't vow to accept the election results until the election was over? What a turn of events. Monica Crowley, Anthony Scaramucci, they're here with Reaction, plus an 18-year-old Somali refugee who had permanent legal status here in the U.S., suspected of plowing his car into pedestrians at Ohio State University earlier today. He also attacked people with a butcher's knife. Geraldo Rivera, Sebastian Gorka, they weigh in, and the one and only Tim Tebow is here tonight in studio. Straight ahead. Welcome back to Hannity. So the alt-radical left mainstream media, their hypocrisy is once again on full display. Now, remember back during the campaign, Donald Trump, he wouldn't say for certain if he would accept the election results until after the American people actually voted. And the media, they went nuts. Take a look.
I think this is a death blow for Donald Trump. I think he had a strong first hour sounding like a more conventional Republican, I think, which was good news for supporters, good news if you were looking for him to kind of expand his support. And then this. It undermines our democracy. It's way outside the tradition of our democracy in presidential races.
That moment when he said what he said about accepting the results of the election exposed himself as a coward.
No. Is Hillary a coward? Where's the outrage now? Here with Reaction, the author of, by the way, #2 New York Times bestseller, Hopping Over the Rabbit Hole, Trump Transition Team Executive Committee member Anthony Scaramucci, Fox News contributor Monica Crowley. Good to see you both.
Pleasure to be here.
I mean, this is sort of like taking candy now from a baby, showing what colluding, phony, fake news hypocrites these people are.
Yeah, I heard one comment, I think it was Bob Schieffer, saying, well, Mr. Trump has shown no respect for the media and for this, you know, this institution where we're supposed to keep him and others in government accountable. Well, maybe he'll show them respect when they show him respect and they cover him in an objective, fair way. How about that? That sounds like a good deal.
The report that I got, though, when he had the media in there and he went, liars, you're phony, you're this, just called them out. We had one person in the room that cried when I got elected. That happened to moderate a debate. You know, it was great. And it had WikiLeaks and all the discoveries there. The media is fake.
But it's going to get worse, Sean. That's the problem, because they were so wrong about this thing. Their move right now is to double down on the situation. So Jill Stein has no shot. Secretary Clinton has no shot. The recount is really a publicity stunt, and it's designed to garner fundraising for Jill Stein. This is her last moment of relevancy on the way to irrelevancy. And so what I will say about our campaign, I will say about the president-elect, is that he would have accepted the results if he thought that they were fair.
That's what he said.
And that's all it was. And they know that the results are fair. And President Obama, you have to give him credit, Monica, he called Secretary Clinton and said, you have to concede the race. 15 minutes after that call, she made the call to the now president-elect. So
but here's the thing.
So it's over, Sean. It's a sad thing for them.
Said it. There's no evidence. This is sort of, I think Newt had a good analogy. This is like, okay, let's go to Mars and let's talk about Martians. Because this is a conspiracy. The very thing they attacked Donald Trump for, she's guilty of.
But remember, there's something bigger going on here. And to disagree with my good friend Anthony, it's not over. What they're doing here, they know that they're not going to overturn the results.
Delegitimizing.
This is about delegitimizing his election and then his presidency. They want to discredit him and delegitimize him. So
but
what
you
they're
think
doing
he's
now
getting
is
inaugurated, though, right?
They're trying to delay the vote in the Electoral College as long as they possibly can through this recount. And remember, the press has an ideological agenda, and now they are personally opposed to the president-elect.
No, they want to listen. I'm going to take it further.
Hell.
They want to take him down now. They are going to start from today through his entire 4 years to hurt him and hurt any chance of he has of implementing his agenda.
Well, they got that playbook during George W. Bush's last 2 years, and so they're just going to ratchet it up now for the beginning of the
This is why Trump should ignore all these media
But he's going to be inaugurated on January 20th. You believe that, or you don't believe it?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's my point about it being over.
Yeah, it's over.
Yes, but this is setting a backdrop to delegitimize every single thing he does as president.
See, all those people that I was talking about earlier, the ones that need the crayons and the coloring books and the Play-Doh and the hot cocoa and the aromatherapy, they're going to get angry. That shock and awe is going to become anger, and that anger is going to be focused on Donald Trump. And the only advice I would say to anybody that supports Donald Trump is you better be ready for a fight. This is going to get ugly.
No question.
And he needs to understand Paul Ryan's not his friend, McConnell's not his friend, the Democrats are not his friend.
The New York Times, all the people he brought into Trump Tower.
None of them.
And I think the president-elect understands that very well.
Get a dog. You want a friend in Washington, get a dog.
He also has something that traditional politicians don't have. He's got sort of this protective shield around him because he created an emotional bond with the American people.
Go right to them.
And so they want to protect him. They view him as an underdog, and they will beat back the mainstream media.
As long as he stays with his promises.
That's right. And from a communication standpoint, he promised to smash the corrupt rigged system. That includes the corrupt rigged media.
He's got one other thing, though, Sean, because I get the opportunity to sit in the tower with him. He's got unbelievable instincts on people.
He does.
And I'll tell you something else. He's a phenomenal listener. So people say he doesn't listen.
So you're telling me that Romney's not going to get it then?
Because he's listening to you. See, I didn't say that he acts on everything you say, Sean. I said that he
listens.
He's
a good listener. Listen, I just want him to be, you know what I want?
He's got great instincts.
I would like at the end of the day.
And he loves you as a guy, by the way.
I would love at the end of the day that we get all Americans that want jobs, balance our budget, energy independent, educational sent back to the states, protecting our homeland. You know what? It would be a really successful presidency if he could do those things.
The revenue growth is going to really come from the energy side. Wait till you see the proposals that are going to be rolled out. At the end of the day, we've got it right underneath our feet.
I agree.
And by the way, when the president gets this economy roaring, it'll silence everybody.
All right, up next, 18-year-old Somali refugee who has legal permanent residence in the U.S. suspected of carrying out an attack earlier today at Ohio State University. We'll check in with Geraldo Rivera, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, and then later tonight, the one and only Tim Tebow, live in studio, talk about his new career with the New York Mets and more. And welcome back to Hannity. So earlier today, an 18-year-old Somali refugee and Ohio State University student, Abdul Razak Ali Artan, is suspected of driving his car onto a sidewalk of the Columbus, Ohio campus, striking multiple pedestrians. The suspect then reportedly got out of the car, began stabbing people with a butcher knife. Police shot and killed Artan, and not before he injured several people. Authorities are suspecting that the attack was terrorism. Earlier this month, on the campaign trail, Donald Trump criticized America's refugee program. He promised to stop unvetted immigrants from entering the country. A big issue. Watch this.
You've seen firsthand the problems caused with the refugee program, with large numbers of poorly vetted refugees pouring into your state without your knowledge, without your support, or without your approval. Nobody even knows where people are being placed. A Trump administration will not admit any refugees without the support of the local community where they're being placed.
Joining us now with reaction, Fox News senior correspondent Geraldo Rivera and the author of the bestseller Defeating Jihad, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Geraldo, I mean, this goes to the heart of what I've been saying. If you come from a country and a culture that's where men can tell women how to dress, and men can tell them whether they can drive or go to school or go to work, and gays and lesbians are killed. You know, values that are the antithesis of our values. You can't ascertain whether or not somebody is coming here to proselytize, indoctrinate, and advance a caliphate. There's no way to ascertain, is there?
No, well, putting aside that issue just for a second, this guy, Abdul Artan, came as a child. He's 18-year-old. He was 18 years old when he perpetrated.
And he lived in Pakistan as well.
At age 11. I don't think that he came here with the intent to commit this crime. I do think that there is a real cancer within the Somali American community, mostly around the Twin Cities. You've had 20 young men go from the Twin Cities back to Africa to fight. In the fight I know well, I've covered it, the Somali, Al-Shabaab. They are an Al-Qaeda, ISIS-like group. They are brutal. This kid, though, seems to be another one of these self-starting, self-radicalized Islamists. Checking out this kid, in August, he wrote a letter to the Lantern, the Ohio State, the Buckeye newspaper, where he said he's a Muslim and he's worried about praying in public because of the attitude toward Muslims that the media is portraying. So he must have, or he apparently self-radicalized.
There is a French. You're making a lot of assumptions here, though.
Well, here's my main assumption is if you have a student who has a history of being troubled as he got out with the knife, then that is obviously what he did was terrorism. He's obviously radicalized. Therefore, he is a radical Islamist terrorist, a lone amateur radical Islamist terrorist. And I totally believe that to be the case in this instance.
And that's the risk that America takes if we're taking people from countries with values that contradict our own. And apparently, it's reported he spent time in Pakistan, Dr. Gorka.
Look, can we just jettison some of the phrases Geraldo has used? Radicalized and lone wolf and troubled. I'm fed up of these people being treated as the victims. Already we have local reporters saying they have no idea what the motivation is. This is exactly the same as the 2013 attack on Fusilier Lee Rigby in London, a man who was run down by two jihadis, and then they tried to decapitate him on the streets of England. Nobody should be surprised at this. The Obama administration has allowed 50,000 Somali refugees into the country in the last 8 years. You cannot effectively vet people from places like Somalia or active war zones. This is something that we will see happen again and again and again if we use phrases like lone wolf and radicalized. This is clearly an individual who, from preliminary reports, chose this lifestyle and to kill his fellow Americans, and this will not be the last attack on U.S. soil, Sean.
All right, and Geraldo, we've got to have you back tomorrow. I take such issue with your comments about Fidel Castro, a murdering
we've just begun.
Dictator. I will have you back
tomorrow. Mitt Romney for Secretary of State, and David Petraeus if you don't get Mitt. That's fine with me, Sean. Let's debate it tomorrow.
All right, we'll debate both tomorrow. And our thoughts and prayers for the people at Ohio State tonight. And coming up, Tim Tebow. He's in studio. We'll talk to him about his book, his new career with the New York Mets, and much, much more. Straight ahead. Welcome back to Hannity. So former NFL quarterback, now professional baseball player Tim Tebow is out with a brand new book. It's called Shaken, Discovering Your True Identity in the Midst of Life's Storms. In it, Tebow writes about some of the most challenging times in his career and how his faith helped him through it. And joining us now in studio, how are you? Good to see you again. How you been,
Thanks for having me, man.
You know, you say there's something in the book, just because you have faith, and I'm a Christian, I'm probably not as good as you. But
it's not about being good. That's a great thing about Christianity.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not about what we do.
I get to keep doing bad and saying I'm sorry, I know. but in all honesty, I mean, I love that you have been so outspoken with your faith. I think you've been punished for it. And I think it's like, I don't understand these teams. If you were on a team, everybody in the stands has Tebow's shirts on. I mean, it's crazy, right?
Well, there'll probably be a few of them.
I was mad at my Jets for not using you better.
Yeah, that one didn't work out too well, I got to be honest. But
you told a story when you got called in by the Patriots you were there and you went to Coach Belichick, who I admire a lot, and said, hey, I got $1 million offer for 1 day's work. And he said, don't do it. Tell the story.
Well, you know, I wanted to be respectful because I needed to be a teammate. I needed to fall in line and, you know, stay under the radar. And so I was respectful of him. That's something we talked about the day, you know, that I signed there. And so I went into him with the presentation of, hey, this is what they want me to do. It's something I would do. But what do you think? He said, I would appreciate it if you turned it down. I said, yes, sir, no problem. It's done.
3 weeks later.
Yeah, I got cut from the team. But, you know, I don't regret that, or I'm not bitter at him for that. It was an amazing opportunity. I think for me, more than anything, I was just disappointed because I thought, hey, I'm going to learn from Tom Brady, the best to ever do it. And
he's
now,
really great.
He is. And then he's going to retire, and I'll play for Coach Belichick, and we'll win all these Super Bowls, and it will be amazing. And, you know, then I get cut from the team, and it felt like a sucker punch. I remember flying home that day to Jacksonville. I was sitting on the edge of my bed thinking, I have no home, no car, no one wants me to do what I want to do. And you know, this book is written for times like that where it feels like everything around you is shaken. Now what do? What do I hold on to? What is my foundation? And, you know, so many times in life, we feel like we're defined by certain things. Our identity is found in certain things. And what happens when those things crumble? What happens when you're an NFL player and that goes wrong? What happens when, you find your identity in a relationship and it goes bad? What happens when you find it in a job and you lose it? That's what this book touches on. And the goal really of this book was if you pick it up with your head down, you finish the book with your head held high, knowing that God has an awesome plan for your life, you matter and you are important. And that's a bigger identity than anything